Hi everyone. Hope this short video lecture finds everyone safe. Quite an interesting set of developments over the evening hours, and sure, there's a lot of details and information to move forward, and hopefully they get a handle on what's going on and help to, more importantly, prevent and take care of issues moving forward. But for we have good people working on that. For us, we'll be working on the back end final elements of our marketing class, and this is class 35. Specifically, we're going to look at what most people traditionally see as or consider marketing, which is the advertising element. Spend a slight bit on public relations as well, but we'll really be focusing mostly on advertising, creative, and media for this particular lecture. So there's really two types of advertising. There's what's known as institutional advertising and product advertising. And institutional advertising really just looks at trying to enhance a company's image rather than promoting any specific or particular product. It's kind of just sending a message out. A company that does a fair bit of this is Apple. There's many others as well. And then product advertising is where you're literally trying to get a message across about a specific good or service. You can do some of both, but typically ads pick one or the other moving forward. In the diving down a little further and you look at institutional advertising, there's two types, one being corporate identity and the second being advocacy. And advocacy is when you're trying to promote a particular, could be a charity, a charitable effort, could be, we're green and here's why we're doing this. We're giving back and we feel our products do this or that. So sometimes you take that podium and you advertise a particular position, whether it's something that your company does directly as a consequence of your business, or whether it's an element that's tied into some a particular let's say a charity or a concern that you have that you want to sort of move that forward, you can do that. And then the corporate identity one is just really just getting the information about who you are as a company and an organization and what you're trying to do. And then in product advertising, there's three types: pioneering, competitive, and comparative. In pioneering, what you're trying to do is stimulate primary demand, right? The initial demand for your product, something that's new, you want people to be made aware of it. And that's typically used in the introductory stage of the product life cycle. Competitive advertising is where you're trying to take the demand for your product and the brand, and that's usually in the growth phase of product life cycle. Usually have emotional appeals there. Remember the different stages of getting people engaged, right? You create awareness. It's the first thing you do. That could be considered pioneering. Then you're looking at trying to get people to sort of get a buy-in for it, right? And the emotional attachment to something. And then ultimately down the road, right, you want them to take an action and do something about it. Comparative advertising, which is the third category, is where you have competing brands that are there and you're trying to really focus on the attributes. You use that if you have a lot of competition or if your growth is sluggish and you want to try to grab some market share. That's where comparative advertising works the best. Here's another acronym for you, something called DAGMAR. You define advertising goals for measured advertising results. So typically that means you have a target audience, similar to what you're doing with your term project, right? Who is my target audience? You try to define, in your case you wouldn't do this for your term project, but typically advertisers will look at, okay, I'm going to do this and run this effort. How much of a percentage change do I want over what my current engagement is, current business levels? Could be a whole bunch of different metrics that you use. And then you say, I want to do this over this period of time. Okay? So by doing that, you're targeting who you're going after. You're also defining how much you want to move the needle, so to speak, for measurement, and over what period of time. And a lot of this helps frame what your sort of constraints are. Specifically, it also helps address the kind of money that we're talking about as well, which many managers care about quite a bit. If you're looking at identifying products, you can do it in two ways. In terms of looking at attributes or benefits. So here's an example of if you're looking at attribute based, right? This one is very clear. Powerade gives a new line that's been reformulated to scientific benefits of the drink, B vitamins, speed of metabolism. That's talking about specifics. But if you're looking at the benefit, which is less tangible, if you will, it's satisfy your thirst with a great tasting drink that will power you throughout the day. That's the benefit you get of the attributes in the energy drink. So ads tend to either focus on one or the other, depending on what your end game is and what the benefits or the core competencies are that you have. You're probably familiar with many of these different advertising appeals. They happen in many different ways. You've got people that sort of say it's all about love or romance, right? Those are very common ways that ads appeal to you. Could be the fun and pleasure thing, beer, and it's listed here, right? You've got vacations, beer parks, beers, Budweiser, Miller, all these cores, all these companies very commonly use humor and fun as a way to sort of drive home their message that they want you to get. So all health, fear is actually a very common advertising appeal. Social embarrassment, old age, losing health. I mean, do you want to prevent that? Here's what you do. You get our product and you end up using that. So I think all those things are key elements of advertising appeals that are very commonly used by an organization. In any ad, you need to make sure that you have a unique selling proposition. If there's one thing only that you can communicate to the customer, to the person that you're trying to get to, is what's different about your product. What makes it desirable, exclusive. What do you want people to leave with, right? And here you look at this particular billboard from Verizon, right? The whole campaign they had about "Can you hear me now?" Very common thing when you're talking to someone on the phone. They decided to sort of cleverly pull that, and what they're trying to do here is saying their network is better, and it is actually. It's the most extensive network, and the coverage is the best. Based on at least my personal experience, I've been a Verizon customer from day one, and that was because I originally was a corporate customer, and I've used that for my personal cell phone use, and it's worked great. And you do hear of other people that if you look at the AT&Ts of the world and all the others that are out there, T-Mobile, they don't promote their network because they can't, because Verizon's is the best, and that's their unique selling proposition. For others, they sort of promote on other elements. You look at T-Mobile, it's bringing people together. Well, great, every phone does that, but they try to add some soft factors to it that make it a bit different and interesting. And then if you look at someone like AT&T, they have a sort of a different positioning as well. So always look at if you can only communicate one thing, what is it? Now, you have different message techniques, but you also have different ways to execute it, right? So we kind of talked about it before. These are different appeals in general, and then here's the particular ways that you do it. So you have an appeal, but then this is the mechanism that gets you there. So you could have a product demonstration. You could have something that's called a lifestyle, where you show and expose people to certain ways. Could be a fantasy kind of commercial. Could be animation. These are all of the sort of the business end, if you will, of the ads, where this is how you're going to pitch it, and this is how you do it, right? Two different things, very different things. So I have a bunch of ads here, and I'd like you to actually look at all of these ads. That's what we were going to spend a fair bit of class time doing. The first one ad here is a McDonald's ad. The second one is a Burger King ad. The third one is an ad by or for Evian water. The fourth one is an ad that's a bit dated, but it was for PlayStation. It was an ad that was run in the UK, not run here in the United States. And then the last one, and I think the most powerful ad, is an ad for a product called Dermablend. And the reason I picked these ads is one of the reasons I picked the McDonald's and the Burger King ad is because we had a case to look at, which was this one right here, right? The Burger King case. And if you look at Burger King and how they have sort of run and positioned their advertising, very edgy, very non-conventional. Their demographic tends to focus on young males, right? Aged, I don't know, 15 to maybe 25. So they're looking for ways to sort of motivate that. And I think when you look at these ads, the McDonald ads tend to be very fun, very family focused, and clearly their message is different. It's non-controversial. It's definitely fun and upbeat. You look at the Burger King ads; they tend to be very, very different. I mean, it's the almost direct opposite. They're very, some might consider them sexist. Some might consider them, sort of very controversial. Actually, you look at some of their ads in the European Union and other places. Those were ads that would never see the light of day here in the United States. So they tend to push the envelope for sure. The Evian ad I included because I think it's an example of a very well done campaign. It was an ad that was not inexpensive to produce, lots of animation and computer CGI work, but about how they're communicating their brand about drinking water makes you youthful. Very clever, very well done ad. The ad on the internet went viral. Very interesting. So I'd like you to take a look at that. This fourth ad is to me a really sort of unique ad. It's what I would consider. Remember, we were looking at ads before, and we were talking about institutional versus product. That ad is an institutional ad. There's no question. This ad is that. It's very, very well done. It's very unconventional. You don't really find out if you didn't know that it was an ad about PlayStation until right at the end. Sort of the punchline of the ad is right at the end. So I think it was a very well done ad, award-winning, and really gives you an example of how they're trying to position their product, and they're trying to really position it to all markets, and you see that because of the wide variation of people that are in the ad. And then the last ad is a really interesting one. It's an ad that I think is very, very effective. It's basically a makeup, a very expensive makeup that's available for covering tattoos. And the representative or poster child for that particular ad is, if we can see, this gentleman right here. He's better known as Zombie Boy. And at the end of the commercial, you can see 12 million views is not a small amount of views, at least for this. It never saw the light of day on commercial TV, but that's one of the beauties actually of the internet and YouTube. This is a almost 3 minute, essentially, commercial or infomercial, and for you to actually pay for that on regular broadcast or even cable TV would cost you an arm and a leg. And they didn't really have to worry about that. So they focused on print advertising and primarily on the web, and got tons of people to sort of look at this video. And it's actually a very, once you get through the uncomfortableness, and a lot of people are uncomfortable when they look at this ad, this is an extremely effective ad that gets the message across about how powerful their product really is. If you can take Zombie Boy and make him look like, within reason, of course, sans the nose ring and the other hardware that he's wearing. Very, very, it demonstrates the efficacy of the product. It's actually incredible. So, so these are the different videos here. Here's the Burger King one. Here's the McDonald's one. Here's the Evian one, and then we've got the Double Life one for PlayStation, and then finally the Go Beyond the Cover ad for Dermablend. Take a look at all these ads. We'll spend a little time talking about it in class on Monday when we get back together, hopefully. But really, really powerful ads, and they show you examples of how good creative people can produce some really interesting stuff. We talked about the power of public relations before, and what their benefits are. I mean, PR looks at press relations, corporate communications. Obviously, they do all these things. Crisis management is kind of important. We haven't talked about sales promotion yet specifically, but that's where you give people incentives, short-term incentives to buy. right? That's what sales promotion is all about. So advertising gives people reasons to buy. Sales promotion gives them incentive to buy. Okay, so that's when you've already created some awareness, right? You're moving on into the growth phase and you want people to start going. That's what sales promotion does. And the objectives depend on the type of buyer you are. So if you're a loyal customer, it's about reinforcing behavior. Loyalty programs work good there. Bonus packs, buy one, get one free. If you're looking at stealing competitors' customers, which many people do, that's getting people to try it, sampling, contests, premiums, that type of thing. People who are brand switchers who go back and forth, they just care more about price, right? And trade deals are deals that you get through the retailers or other intermediaries that sell to consumers. And then if you're just really a price buyer, it's about coupons, price off, all that sort of stuff. So you have to look at what type of buyer you have to determine what sales promotion has more efficacy. I'm going to focus just on 3 here. Coupons, very common, multi-billion-dollar business. With the web and with mobile advertising, you can get electronic coupons, and it basically allows you to do an immediate price reduction to incentivize and stimulate behavior. Rebates, great tools, right? Most people don't. Maybe half of the rebates that are offered and granted to customers, people don't go ahead and act on, sadly. But for manufacturers and retailers, they love that. And then premiums are basically where you give something to a customer. So if you buy something, you get something extra as a result. It's kind of like a give back, if you will. These are the most common 3 promotional tools that are used for consumers, and they work rather well. We talked a little bit about loyalty programs and frequent buyer programs. These tend to be very, very effective at stimulating and keeping customers engaged. Sampling, totally, especially for, here's a picture here of, looks like someone wearing a Starbucks jetpack, but this is in China. China is a tea nation, not a coffee nation, and Starbucks did a ton of work to try to get people to try coffee because it was a very foreign element to them. And these techniques are still going on in China. Starbucks is growing rapidly there as the Chinese culture learns to find out what the vagaries of coffee can be. So again, the Burger King case is interesting because, as we mentioned earlier, they have a very sort of edgy, different way to do it. Their target demographic isn't families, although they do want families to come, but they target younger male consumers who love large efficient calorie meals. And then maybe once they get them, as they become young parents, they keep them and harvest their kids. But very, very different way. And if we were in class, we would have had a chance to maybe look at some alternative Burger King ads, which are very edgy and would probably not see the light of day in the U.S., but in other parts of the world, particularly in Europe, very commonplace. And they push the envelope there where McDonald's would stay away from that any way they could, any way possible. So that's the lecture for today. Take a look at those ads, very important, and we will spend a couple minutes talking about those ads on Monday. I did send out a note regarding adjustment of giving you another day because of the lockdown situation, what's happening with the follow-up to the terrorist activity at the Boston Marathon on Monday. So you do have an extra day. I did also put in some grades on, I think updates were done to MBTN. I did follow up and send, and you should have received, at least from your CEOs in your term project groups, the fan page write-up graded, so those should be back. Those grades will be posted over the weekend as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a good rest of the day and have a great weekend.